Hi, welcome to the Ellis Talker Show. I'm DV LeBron, and today I have a very special guest, MISD Superintendent Dr. Joe Fay. How are you, ma'am?
I am wonderful. Thank you for having me. It's great to be.
There's Yes, it's always great having you on, ma'am. And there's so much going on, and MISD has a bond, and I wanted to get you on to talk about the bond, to put out information because I believe information is key. And it maybe have you talk a little bit about some of the things that are going on in the district.
Sure, love to.
So before I got into anything, I definitely wanted to recognize some students that had a military signing day,
hmm
and students at MISD who decided to raise their hand and serve their country. As a vet, I completely love that, and I wanted to put them up and honor them. Mr. Sean Dean, who is joining the U.S. Marine Corps. Um, Rome Hernandez, U.S. Marines. Tai Long, U.S. Army. Jacob Regalado, U.S. Marines. Caden Rollins, U.S. Marines, and now my favorite, okay, Ryan Schrank and Kyler Sickler, who are or Ryan Schrank, who's joining the Navy. Kyler Sickler, who's the U.S. Army. Joshua Winman, Texas Air National Guard, and Samantha Sucero, Army National Guard. I hope I didn't butcher your names. I am so proud of you kids. I know that there's so many options that you could have done, but you chose to serve your country. That to me is beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you for acknowledging them. I went to the ceremony yesterday, and I've only been here for this. I'm going on 2 years, and I've been here for. I haven't seen a lot of the celebrations that we do, and we didn't do this last year. But I've heard that Midlothian ISD has done that before, where they celebrate kids that are going into the military. And I think next year actually it'll be a little bigger. We're planning on hopefully inviting our veterans into that, and so that our young ones can see the ones who have gone before and served in that capacity, and just how honorable it is. Because I think it's just wonderful that we have that. We have a brand new ROTC unit that we started this year, and we have a rock star leader for that, Lieutenant Colonel Bolton, who actually came from 25th ID out of Fort Stewart, Georgia. And he has our kids competing everywhere, and they're being highly successful. And my new thing is all we do is win. And so it's a lot of fun watching our kids do the things that they love, and glad to be part of it.
Yeah, because I remember when you first came, I had asked you about ROTC, and it kind of wasn't going in MISD yet, but it was going to come, and we briefly talked on that. Now we're full bore. Now we're there, and these kids volunteering to join, the greatest armed forces for the greatest country on earth. Thank you, kids. I really appreciate it. I look forward to the day when I could call you brother and sister.
Yep, awesome.
So,
thank you for recognizing that.
So, there's a bond, and there are opinions here, there are opinions there. There's a lot going around, and I believe in information. So I wanted to have you on to talk about the bond and the particulars about the bond and ask you questions about it.
Sure.
So, can you explain to me, just first, let's start about the bond and maybe just the overall numbers on that bond, and then we'll go into what they're doing. We'll break it down.
Sure. So I'll kind of just touch on, do you want me to talk about process at all, or how we got to those?
Absolutely. I'm sorry. That is better.
Yeah, that's okay. I just believe in sharing as much about the process so that our community can understand how the committee came up with what they did. But the district has a growth and planning committee that's been in place for a considerable time, even before I got here, that actually worked on the last bond, and then they pull them together periodically to let them know how that bond is going and in the facilities that are being built. And so we actually stood up a few more meetings in the spring with that same group. We didn't extend the group out at all at that point. And we had we had about 4 meetings in our schools. We had, I know, one at MHS, one at Frank Seal. We had 2 at different elementary sites in the system. And so, we talked about the needs of the district at that time. Mr. Jim Norris has kept a really good tracking system of facilities that need upgraded and things like that over time. And he's just a fabulous man. And so, so we were at that point, and this is not my expertise. I'm not, didn't come from a fast growth district. So there's a lot of unknowns. And right about that same time, Mr. Norris he indicated that he was going to be retiring. And so I kind of put the brakes on a little bit because I felt like I needed some level of expertise to help us do this work because nobody in our system had that. And so we put the brakes on. We brought in a consultant. WRA was selected for that. And to help us figure out, not because with inflation, certainly I don't know how to build out the pricing for a building with all the codes and things like that. And so they did that for us, and it was wonderful. Then we took all actually they didn't do that until we got what we thought we wanted as a community. But anyway, so we began that work again in the fall when we were ready to go with a facilitator. And we ended up expanding that committee. We ended up having about 135 people involved in the process all the way back from last spring to right before February when our board called that bond. And it was a really good process. We had over 135 members in the process, about 1,000 hours of community hours from our stakeholders in the room. We had people that were all for it, and we had a couple that weren't. And so they were definitely at the table so we could hear their voice as well. Anyway, so we came up with a total price tag, and what the committee wanted was 3 different propositions. And the total on that was right at 415. Let me go back to my little slide here. I got 415,944,300. And I think that's important, but I think what's most important is to understand the data that was presented to the committee so that they could make informed decisions. And if you want me to, I can share that as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, any information that you can share on how this came to be and why it came to be is definitely cool.
Yeah. So we have a demographer that is working with the district, and he's been with this district way before I was here. I actually worked with him in San Antonio as well. Obviously we have a quarter report that comes from him every quarter. All that information is held on our website, and what they do is they track all the developments and things coming to the community, things that are already platted, things that are getting taken to the city, all the things that are going on into what is going to be the growth and development of the district. And so our district is not just made up of Midlothian City, but we do serve kids from Cedar Hill, kids from Ovilla, kids from Venus, kids from Waxahachie, kids from Mansfield, and kids from Grand Prairie. Matter of fact, we serve quite a few, and that will continue to grow as they continue to build in the ETJ of Grand Prairie. And so what that demographer shared with us is we have about 21,400 single family lots coming. Some of them are already in production. We have about 875 homes currently in production, and we got about 1,400 homes that are currently in development. And what that means is the infrastructure is there to get them on the ground and going. Well, 875 homes is a lot of homes, and 1,400 new ones is a lot of homes. And that's kind of just the beginning when you're talking about 21,000 homes. And the demographer predicted that over the next 10 years that, we're going to potentially move anywhere from 16,000 to almost 18,000 kids. Actually, that's in the next 9 years. And so with that information, do we have the capacity to support that kind of growth? And the answer is no. The other part of the demographer report is the apartment complexes that are coming into our district. And we have currently 4 apartment complexes that are going up in the Grand Prairie ETJ, which is our district. And then we have one that's actually in the city of Midlothian that's going in right catty corner to the Love's stop area. And so we have about total 1,100 apartment units, which is significant. And there's a calculation for how many students these yield that demographers have used for years. I think it's like 0.6 students or children per household and 0.2 students or something like that per apartment, right? And so all those numbers were calculated together to get kind of like a trajectory of year after year for the next 9 to 10 years. and then what would that look like for our campuses and where those developments are actually going up. And right now, you can't really go anywhere in the community without seeing a couple things. Number one, dirt being turned. You can't certainly go up 287 towards Mansfield and see anything but dirt being turned right now. You see homes still being built. They're probably being built at a slower rate, but they're certainly still going up, which I think with the economic downturn, we were all anticipating kind of a big slowdown. And what we know to be true is that people are moving to Texas from places like California and New York and things like that. That because they want to be here. Businesses are moving here. When businesses move here, they move their employees here, and they have to have a place to live. So certainly, we're continuing to monitor what's going on in our district as far as the growth, but it is a pretty significant growth, and so
it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it was it's over 100% growth since early 2000s, and there was a slowdown, a little bit of a slowdown by 15%, and it's on the Midlothian City budget, on their last budget cycle that they projected. But it's still, as you can see, I was showing you the pictures, and for anybody, I'm going to put the link in the comments, but the MISD has a page that puts out a bunch of information. I wanted to make sure that you saw some of the information that's on there that Dr. Faye is talking about. So I'm actually scrolling through their information so that you can see it, and you are welcome to go over there and look at it too. So you saw the growth, you saw that it's coming, and we know that it's coming. And so this bond addresses building more schools and facilities. And what, I'm sorry, drew blank. So one of the concerns about the bond, and we're going to get a little more into that too, is the concern is, the taxes and how that's going to affect people. But I wanted to know, like, what are kind of the security upgrades in light of what happened in Nashville? Are there security upgrades put into this bond for the school?
There definitely will be. There is a safety component to part of one of the propositions, actually all two of the propositions. That's proposition A and B. That's probably not the security that you're talking about, but the safety and security is something that came up during our committee work. So that included the storm shelters, which was interesting. And so I believe it was 2018 or 19, there was a new law that passed that said if you make any major additions or you build something new, you're required to put a storm shelter in. So on that safety component, as you're dealing with catastrophic weather, that is part of the bond. Anytime you build a new facility, however, there are certain requirements. We have standards in Midlothian, which is wonderful, and that happened way before I got here. The board prior to me years ago put a lot of money into the safety and security of our buildings, and so now that our all the new things are coming out from the state, and MISD is actually poised to fare well across that. Doesn't mean that we don't have changes that we can make, but the bond, as far as bond money being used to do different things for security across other existing structures, not necessarily that. There was a grant released from the state of Texas. I think MISD was in a position to, I think, receive over $500,000. Of course, you have to write to the state to get that money, and you have to have a plan for that money. And we've submitted all that so that it'll include some security upgrades. And we actually ran a task force, which is part of our balanced scorecard work, a security task force a couple months ago that was over a period of 2 or 3 meetings. And the number one thing that our community wants is to have a security guard, a police officer on every campus. And so we're definitely working through that process for our budget for next year. That we have a partnership with the city on that. So that's not just going to impact our budget, but it will impact the cities. And so we're definitely moving in that direction because that's what our community wants. And so we'll see how those work out.
Right. Before I move on to the more of the bond, because of Nashville, because of Uvalde, because of, all these different events that have happened around the country. Can you do me a favor and just talk to the parents and assure them and let them, let them know some of the things? I know you can't speak about the exact details of things because that defeats the purpose, but maybe some of the things that we're doing to protect our kids?
Yeah, I certainly can. Well, number one, we have an incredible partnership with our city, Midlothian, who shares the cost of our SROs on our campus. And we actually have a commander assigned to the district, and so he is the number one safety security expert within the district, and he runs the SRO program for us, which is awesome because it's not an additional responsibility that belongs to someone else, which is how some systems are set up. It's not one more thing, it is the thing that this person works on. That's Commander Tim Hicks. The district has, through prior bonds and things like that, did equip our doors of vegetables in schools where you can't just get into, you have to have a certain badge to get in. You have to be, you have to call to get into the building, things like that. But we're also not, we're not living with this false dream that there's no vulnerabilities in the system, right? And so our SROs do checks all day long on the doors, outside doors. Just at our high schools alone, you don't just have one door in, one door out. You have, 50 doors in and out of the building. And so there has to be checks and balances put into that. I know we're working with our staff right now on designing effective monitoring schedules for our staff, because safety and security just doesn't belong to SROs. It actually belongs to everyone in the system. And so we're putting some things in place to assure that we have a plan for that. There are some things that I cannot share, which I know are shared in closed session with our board, so I'm not going to say those things, but we have an incredible surveillance system that's live and running all the time. I know how to use it now, so I can go in and check some things. When I have questions, I don't have to depend on anybody else, and I did that work when I was a high school principal too, so kind of enjoy it a little bit. But yeah, so we are definitely moving, and we're exploring other options too. Like I know that the fentanyl crisis in America is definitely something that's hitting other districts around us. We have someone on our safety committee that is real passionate about safety. He's from our community, and he's connecting us with some experts out of Fort Worth to help us better understand and how to communicate the fentanyl crisis. I would say, we think it's not here. Are we sure? No. But certainly we need to be prepared for it to come and what happens if, right? And so we're definitely researching best practice for how do we keep our kids safe, because we can campaign all we want about what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, but kids will take some risk, and we got to be prepared for that. So, I think we're definitely moving in the right direction. I'm excited about putting some things in the budget that our community actually asked for in the task force committee, because I think that's why we have those meetings. So.
Right. And with security, it's just something that a lot of parents worry about. It's a new world, Dr. Fay. It really is. It's just unfortunate. One of the questions that were asked by a commenter was about SROs. Is there one assigned to every school? Are they roving, or how are we?
We have one or more at every school except our elementaries, and we actually share an SRO between two. And that came up in the task force, and at the time that met national standards. That was prior to Uvalde. We do believe we're going to get some different standards coming out of the nation, and probably some different expectations from the state of Texas. We're hoping that they also fund it, because every dollar that you spend on security is a dollar taken out of, foundation school program for kids. And so it is a public safety issue. It's not a public education issue. And so we're just hopeful, and we'll see where that goes. But they did pump immediately some dollars into systems, but I think they fund us at I don't want to be quoted on it. I don't know the exact number, but I think it's like $7 a kid. Well, if you're at a campus that has 500 kids, what do you do with $3,500, right? Not a lot. So
Right. So going back to the bond, I had to deviate there a little bit, but going back to the bond, and we were talking growth. What has been the student count this year? What do you know the growth in students at MISD this year?
Yeah, we've last year we ended about, I don't want to say where we ended last year. I know we were expected to grow to 11,082 this year, and we're currently sitting, when we finalized the numbers for the committee, it was 11,105. And so we're just a tad bit over the demographer report. What's interesting is where we're seeing that growth, because that growth is being seen at our elementaries, which is a little bit different than what other systems have. A lot of times you see a lot of your growth happening at your secondary levels, but we saw a lot of growth this year at our pre-K 1-2s. And so that wasn't the anticipated place of growth. Certainly coming from someone where we are traditional in San Antonio, you see a lot of growth happening at the secondary level because they have already dealt with the charter issue. And so what you see happening with the charters is they come back to high school because of all the various programs like CTE and fine arts and all the athletic things that they can do, and they don't have necessarily those experiences. And so, but yeah, here at MISD this past year, we saw almost, not all the growth, but a lot of the growth happening in those lower levels, which was kind of like, whoa, because that predicts out your cohorts over time, right? And yeah, it's interesting. So.
Oh yeah, so what's the greatest need on as far as that you see? What is the greatest need? Or is it elementary schools? Is it high schools? Because there's several elementary schools on the bond. So I wanted kind of for you to speak on that, kind of what is the greatest need?
Yeah, I think most immediate need is looking at the capacity of our elementary schools. And I don't have the data on which campuses right in front of me, but I do know in the presentation that we do, got to go back to it if you give me just a minute. I have my presentation pulled up just in case questions like this came up. Yes, but one of the breaking points for us is in 2026, all of our elementary campuses will be at capacity, every single one of them. We are seeing a lot of growth in the Petoskey area, a lot of growth in the Long Branch and McClatchy areas. And so those campuses will be, they're our biggest campuses right now. They have a lot of kids in them. We do have some opportunity at Coleman and Lulu Miller, but we're seeing that start to grow now. Those numbers are filling as well. And so it'll be interesting. And it's not that we couldn't rezone, right? We could rezone in the first couple of years, but that requires eventually you're going to have them, right? You're not going to have any space even if you rezone, and then you add from your maintenance and operations budget, you have to transport kids to and from places, right? And it becomes really expensive. You could possibly split up families. I mean, there's a lot of concerns with doing something like that. So
yeah. Now you have, so I put the propositions on because it's broken in 3, and I have Prop A, which is $356 million. And you get 2 elementary schools, a CTE center, near and dear to my heart, land acquisition, Midlothian High School addition and renovation, Frank Seal Middle School renovation, Mount Peak Elementary renovation and addition, JT Petoskey, all the ones you talked about, Long Branch, the transportation facility, a washing bay, ag barn, additional space for animals. Other than kind of addition is, renovations, new ACs, that kind of stuff.
Actually, a couple of things we call those the sister schools at the elementary, Mountain Peak, Long Branch, and Petoskey. They're all the same floor plan. And there are some significant things at those campuses that are of interest. One is how we best serve our special needs populations in those areas. They lack some capacity there as far as facilities are concerned, and they're making do. But we want to do the right thing. There are also some issues with them not having the same type of programming rooms, like for our fine arts program. Because we at the newer elementaries, they've built out for those programs. The STEM component of elementaries now is a big deal, and most of our elementaries are equipped with things to support that. Those 3 campuses in particular are not, and so there will have to be some additions and renovations, and so we have some work to do there.
And then in Proposition B, that's $48 million, and that was the storm shelters you talked about.
Yeah.
Is that absolutely necessary?
I wouldn't say that I can have an opinion on it at this point, but that is what came out of the committee. And that is a result of what happened with Proposition A, actually. When you look back to Proposition A, if you go back and do that, I don't know if you see that little asterisk there.
Yes.
The little asterisk by those things is that's either a new facility or it's a facility that was going to be adding something to it, right? So it's adding to the structure. And when you do that now, the law requires you to add a storm shelter. What does that mean? And I know that's been a question popping up, and some people have given me some feedback on that. What is a storm shelter? Well, most of our campuses that are built new, their storm shelter is their gym, right? It's not a brand new structure that's going to sit alone and do nothing, right? It's going to be built within the additions it'll be housed within the additions that are built at those campuses. At the Proposition B, and the conversation came because when parents started having the conversation about storm shelters, or our committee did, they started realizing that, hey, like, do we have storm shelters at all these other places? And so I think the committee was, leaning in the direction of having some parity across campuses so that all campuses had a storm shelter. And that's what the committee decided. That wasn't, I don't think I should weigh in on is that necessary or not, but that's what our committee wanted. And so
right.
That's what we took to the board.
And audience, there's certain questions that are on the political side of this. And then there's certain questions that are not. And I understand it's a bond, it's going to be up for vote, but there's certain limitations on each row. And that's why I'm going to have Tammy Toby, the school board president, on, and then I could really talk the politics side of it. But I wanted to get some of the facts from the school, or what the school is saying about the bond. And Dr. Fay is perfect for that. So Prop C is $11 million, and that's athletic improvements and restroom, bleachers, baseball, softball fields, turf, and a tennis court. There, and we're going to roll into the subject here in a minute, but there's definitely angst about getting more debt. There's angst about adding to, taxes of people. They're having a hard time with taxes. So, these things, I know you can't speak to what is absolutely necessary, but can you speak why we need that? That's a better way.
So the committee, the reason why district admin don't make these decisions, right, is because it really is the work of the committee and your community, right? Who am I to say what we need and what we don't need? I've lived here for 18 months, but people that were on that committee comprised a lot of people that have been here for years, some of the people that are just joined us, as a community. And that came up. There was a lot of things that didn't make the cut. Like there was a fine arts center on it, and the committee kind of voted that one out, right? That wasn't a necessary component. And so all I can really share without giving an opinion on it is that this is what our committee wanted. And it had to do, the conversations at the tables were about creating some parity between Midlothian High School and Heritage High School, because we do have a top-notch facility at MHS with our softball and baseball that are turfed, and it rains and 30 minutes later, our kids here can go out on practice. It rains at Heritage and they cannot necessarily do that. So the committee felt like there was some parity concern there. And then with the middle school bleachers and the restrooms, that was really driven by parents on the spectrum of, when I show up to games, I don't have any place to sit. And we know that to be true. We have a incredibly powerful group of parents who support our kids, and you can go to any football game at the stadium and see that Midlothian ISD's side fills up fast and the opposing side doesn't fill up as fast, right? And so but when you add bleachers, right, you would think it's pretty easy, just move in a couple bleachers. Well, when you do that, you're required to add restrooms by code, and so that's why there's some additional cost to that, because certainly moving in a set of bleachers is not that big a deal, but when you add seating capacity, I think by code you have to add restrooms. And then the issues with I want to say middle school tennis courts is, last year we had a request right when I got here for us to share our courts with the city, the broader community of adults to be using our facilities, right? Because same tax dollars, right? Same people paying the taxes. And we agreed to that. But at Walnut Grove, they only have 4 tennis courts. at Dietrich and Frank Sill, they have 8, right? So that was another one of those kind of parity issues amongst the committee. Certainly, I don't have an opinion either way. My job is just to make sure that we represent the information to our board that the committee decided upon.
Okay. Now, one of the big issues, like I was saying, is taxes. People move to this community for the schools. They do. They want MISD. A lot of people get here.
Mhm.
So, taxes are hurting people, and the very people who came to this community to get to these schools are having to move out because their taxes are just, through the roof. And there's a lot of things that go into that, obviously, but the school districts here in Texas, that's your biggest chunk of your property tax. So how will this bond affect the people of Midlothian and those that are within this school district as far as taxes? Will it raise their taxes?
So that's a complicated question because based on how we're operating currently within the 3 propositions, and I mean by current law, what we can do, what we can't do, the answer changes depending on how the voters vote, right? So if Proposition A only is voted upon, then currently under current laws, depending on what the legislator does, then there will be no tax rate impact, right? If you currently, and I say that with regard because we are in a legislative session. Currently, if A and B pass, the voters, if that's what they choose, there would be a tax rate increase by 1.97 cents. And currently, in the current situation, without legislators taking action on the big, thing for I think the governor has a thing on, lowering the tax impact on our community, which would be great, right? And that's just not us, that's the whole state of Texas on property taxes. And if Proposition A, B, and C are voted upon as a collective, then certainly that would, in the current setting, increase the tax rate by 2.6 cents. Our board did lower the tax rate this past year by 4 pennies. So in the current setting, it wouldn't exceed that. And so I know there's a question about, can you guarantee? And the answer is no, because we're in a legislative session, right? So can't make any guarantees. I don't want to make promises I can't keep. But currently, if nothing changes at the legislature, then that would be the impact on the community. If things do change, then obviously, there's some, consideration to change that I think could happen. I know at one of our meetings, we're supposed to get some flood of money coming in from the state. I don't think that's happening certainly on capital projects. We may get some additional funding on the student side of things and how to operate, but that certainly is not going to be what's coming in for capital projects and trying to keep up with growth.
Do you worry that this might put undue burden or debt on the school district that may be troublesome in the future?
I think I come from a very conservative household where we are very conservative with our money. But I know in order for me to buy my house here, I had to take out a loan, right? And that's the structure that we live in the state of Texas. That's how the legislators have decided how we can build buildings. And that's why they basically make it the decision of the local communities on how to get that work done. But that interest and sinking fund is the design of legislators so that we can decide as a community on how to pay for our debt and building for growth. So I don't know anybody that can take out a loan or just have $165 million in their pocket to build something, right? Maybe
you don't have that sitting around. No, yeah, me neither. I don't have 165 million.
I did take out a loan to buy my house here, and I pay interest on it, and I pay taxes. So,
some people may not know. Can the school and I know that this would take a long time, but does the school have the capacity to pay for it with its funds that it has now? Like, maybe slow build, maybe are they allowed to in the state to do these projects on the budget?
My assumption is that you're asking about, can we pay for it out of our maintenance and operation budget?
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
the answer is no. 85% of our maintenance and operation budget every year goes to staff salaries every year.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that there solves it. So, I mean, people are just they're concerned with bonds all over the county, and I'm gonna
All
have
over the state
WI.
of Texas, yes.
I'm sorry, what?
All over the state of Texas, yes.
All over it. It is a big concern, and so, you know, you said a committee came up with this and came up with all these bonds. Um, in it, as far as representing the district, you see the need for these, and you see the merits in these bonds, and would you say that?
I would say that we were responsible for presenting the data to the community, and the community is the one who made that decision.
Excellent. Well, I've been popping this website for those that didn't hear me earlier. I've been popping the website for MISD and their bond package. So when Dr. Fay was talking about it, because they break down in there's different ways that it can be taxed. So let's say A, B, and C, A, B, and C came up according to the district website. The houses in Midlothian are somewhere between here and here. So let's go worst case scenario 450, right? The district website would say if it was 450 and A, B, and C passed, this would be your impact 979. That would be what
do you have the tracker pulled up?
I do, ma'am. I got it up. Oh,
Once-
I'm sorry.
Yeah, if you show that screen, that would be good.
I am so sorry. I thought I was showing it. Technology. So I was sitting here messing with this. So what I was saying was A, B, and C, and this is actually the MISD website. And I said worst case scenario, like 450, because houses are expensive here. According to the district website with the tax rate and stuff, it would be 975. That you would pay $9.75 would be your monthly impact, according to the school district website.
Additional, right, to what they're currently, is that what?
Additional, what they're currently.
Yeah, I want to bring something up because I just, we have a very good board, and there's one thing that I want to get out there in the community that happens at Midlothian ISD that doesn't happen everywhere. And we're actually one of two districts south of the DFW area. I'm going to pull it up so I can give you the names and tell you who we're equal to. But out of the districts that are south of the DFW Metroplex, right? Midlothian and one other district, I think it might be Crowley, they actually give an additional homestead exemption. So for example, at MISD, in our board policy, and that is something the board can change, right? And I don't think we're going down that road, which is a wonderful thing for our community, but we give a 10% home exemption before the state ever touches it. So great example. If I have a $300,000 home, the MISD deduction for your tax exemption on that appraisal value is going to be $30,000. Then the state now adds another $40,000 onto that. So if you live in MISD, and that is something to know, is that the board has already put some things into place to help support the community with taxes. So I think that's pretty significant because the board does control that. And we should be very happy about that. And that is actually money that we could actually use on the M&O side of things to do some different kind of work, like paying teachers, to be the top, paying teachers in the area, things like that. But I do believe the board made the right decision when they did that. And it's a luxury of living in the district.
Right. So before we close out, because I know you got to go, I wanted to ask you just general stuff about the district, but is there anything else you'd like to say about the bond before we close out on that?
No,
excellent. So, I'd like to see what, other than these kids signing up for military, what are some of the good things going on at MISD right now?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of really good things. I want to do a big pitch for our final pitch night that's coming up on April 19th. It's one of our I would say one of our premier programs for kids designing their own businesses. And they get to pitch a business plan, and they get, we have business professionals coming in and really asking them tough questions. If you got to see 2 years ago, the mayor was like on fire with kids, and that was exciting to see that our kids can handle that. There's obviously the ROTC program is just something that is amazing, and we're so excited about that. Something that happened today that I'm really, really proud of is that our Midlothian High School. We had our students in our special needs program across the district. They're going out for their Special Olympics Day. And we actually, the principal, Dr. McMullen, sent out almost the entire football team to go be partners to that work with our kids. And they did a huge clap out for them. So just like you would see at a football game when we're sending our kids off to the state championships and stuff, our special needs kids got to experience that excitement as their, I guess the Friday night lights is what we want to call it, and, we have great leaders in the system that want to do great things and be completely inclusive with what we do with our kids. And I think that's probably the most proud work is what we're doing and how we're trying to get better at serving all kids in our system. And I think that's good work.
I was asking a candidate yesterday about that, candidate for board, about special needs kids and such. That's awesome to hear that there's some of them are competing in that. And as far as special education, just a quick, everything going good. What are some of the good things happening other than are kids getting the services that they need from what you understand? And has that population grown a lot?
I don't think it grew significantly this past year, but we do have a significant population of special education kids. And I think the whole state has grown. I think we can expect that to grow with kind of what kids went through with the pandemic. There's, we don't think too much about it. We just, we turned it off and then we turned it back on. But what we forget is that kids were isolated for a good amount of time, less in MISD than probably anywhere in the state. So I'm very happy about that. But kids are really struggling. A lot of kids missed out on the age group where you learn how to have friends and you learn how to interact with others and things like that. And they're in upper grades now where those are now their behavior problems. And so we're trying to work through that. I really believe in the work that our principals and our campus staff is trying to do to try to mitigate for that. We're like every other system. I said it earlier, we're not perfect, but we're trying to do better than we've done before to serve kids. And I think that's all, we want to be perfect. And I would be crazy in saying I can make that happen. But I will tell you, we have a lot of leaders in the system saying that, we're committed to making things better for our kids' experience here. And I'm very proud of that.
I thought it was like I could do all things through Dr. Faye that strengthens me. No, you could do all things. So, I do appreciate you coming on and talking to me about and talking to the people in Midlothian about these things, because these issues are big. And, I'd like to have you on eventually in a few months or something and kind of talk kind of how the year going, some of those things, more academic issues. But I am the CTE stuff. Do they like right now? Have you seen a big expansion in CTE at MISD? Because I talked to WSD, Dr. Jerry Hollingsworth, who I'm going to have on talking about the bond, and he tells me about all this CTE stuff. So, I mean, where we at?
I'm going to tell him to watch and learn at some point. But, he's wonderful. He's a great partner to me. We really, bounce ideas off each other quite a bit. And that's super nice for me to have a partner in that work here. We definitely have expanded some areas of CTE, and we have a partnership now with TSTC where we're actually transporting kids to their program in Red Oak to get access to current tech programs that are not available here to our kids. And we're definitely looking to expand within MISD. That's a really, I know I've continued to balance the relationship that I have with our industry partners and the understanding of where we are as a state to better understand what the needs of the workforce are. Gerdau's been a great partner to that, and so too has the TSTC Center, because they have access to data that I don't have. Big shout out to Kyle Kinnetetter as well, who definitely is I think he's the economic development guy here in Midlothian, and him and I talk often about the needs. And it's funny, one of the things about all the kids that joined the military is they actually talked about, I want to say MOS, right? Like what jobs they were going to go into. Right. I don't know if you call it that in all the services, but
no, in the Navy, it's a rate.
There you go. Well, in the Army, it's an MOS. And so I remember yesterday when I was sitting there listening to all the things that our kids were going to go do and what they've been accepted to do in the military, all of them were technical jobs, right? And that's just super wonderful because they'll have a skill. And they were like aviation technology, like, you know, and those are all wonderful, beautiful jobs to have. They're high paying. They can create great lives. You know, so I've always been the one that says, you know, success doesn't always mean the 4-year degree, and some it does for some, and for some it means having a plan after that may include that at some point in their life. But you know, I just have a really hard time spending a whole bunch of money on an education that you may or may not use, and so I just want to offer different opportunities in our system so that kids can follow their dreams. ROTC is one of them.
Yes.
You know,
and with, you know, Dr. Faye, because you got your PhD, you understand college loan debt, and it's crushing. It's almost bigger than, I believe it's almost bigger than credit card debt. It is huge. And so offering these opportunities, these schools, you can make a very good life for yourself, and it doesn't cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars before you start, you know. So it's definitely, I love that the schools are going to CTE, because college wasn't for me. It was the Navy and a trade. So a lot of kids having that option, that's awesome.
One of our big programs here, it's just really amazing, and we have a great relationship with both Methodist Hospital and Scott and White. But our health careers program here, I mean, I think we have we're broaching the 400 student mark in that. And so when you only have, you know, 3,000 or 4,000 kids in your high school setting, that's a significant population interested in the health careers. And I think we actually don't have enough capacity to serve all the kids that want it. And, you know, I spent the day, I didn't spend the day, but I went over yesterday to see our kids at Methodist, and they were learning how to suture. So I had a kid teach me how to suture a pig's foot. And I thought if they really know it, they're going to have to teach me. You know, we have kids that are graduating not only with CNAs, but their phlebotomy licenses, you know, things like that. I'm actually going to go over in a couple of days and see if they can get blood from me.
No, okay. Give me your blood for the district. That's a great superintendent.
It was great. They used a drill. I watched them use drills yesterday to actually drill into like a cow bone, so that kind of I think it mimics like what surgery might be like, you know. And so, yeah, it's just there's incredible experiences that our kids can have in the CTE environment. And I know I've visited quite a few of the big CTE centers across this area, and there's just some wonderful things happening. And I think it's all relevant at this point. And I think hopefully we're getting to a place where we're not selling the entire bill of goods, that the only thing that can make you successful is a 4-year degree from a college. And so,
yes, ma'am.
Yep. So,
well, Dr. Faye, again, thank you so much for coming on. I know you got to go. This show went longer. I'm sorry, guys. These shows have been going a little longer than I would like, but information is key. And there's a lot of very important things coming on the ballot. Only 3 to 6% of people are voting. Yeah. That's terrible. Yeah. Those kids that are getting ready to go and serve this country, they're gonna serve to protect those rights. Yeah. There's a lot of us that already went there and for those rights. So get out and vote, people. Get out and vote.
2 things. I'll be speaking at the Lions Club in 10 minutes, and I'll be speaking at the Chamber next week if anybody wants to join.
Yeah, go to Lions Club and go talk to her. You take care, ma'am. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Bye-bye.